Most new families know within the first 7 minutes whether or not they're coming back to your church. If the church's mission is to make disciples, and it is, then our objective for every weekend worship experience should be centered around getting people from the entrance to the altar. But there are a lot of variables competing for the attention of the person who needs hope. So how do we develop a process that minimizes those competing variables while increasing our chances of seeing them go all in at the end? Well, we're glad you asked. We're about to share what has worked best for us. Are you ready? Let's do this. Welcome to the Small Town Big Church Leadership Podcast, a place where pastors, church leaders, and volunteers can grow themselves and the local church. We're pastors Brad and Misty Helton, church planters in rural America.
Please note, wherever you're consuming today's content, you can get the audio version of this episode on podcast. You can watch the video version on your personal Facebook pages, on Instagram, or also YouTube. But wherever you're consuming the content, it would mean the world to us if you would share it, rate it, review it, like it, and subscribe to it. This will honestly help us reach more pastors and church leaders and volunteers just like yourself in small towns that truly want to see healthy growth in their churches. Thanks in advance for helping us. Now let's get to today's episode.
Well, hello, Small Town Big Church family. Look, if you consistently consume the content that we share, and we hope you do, you may have noticed a bit of a gap in our distribution schedule, and there's a really good reason for that. Many of you know Miss Lainey Helton, who does all of our videography for the podcast, but also holds the title of being our beloved bonus daughter. Her and our son AJ in September 2024 had their first baby boy, River Jordan Helton, and we could not be more happy.
That's right. We're so excited. It's so crazy that we are now grandparents, but we are. And so we just wanted to let you know why there was a little bit of a gap, but now we're back. And so you can expect the podcast every other Thursday like you had it before. So let's kind of dive into where we are today. So let me just start with a question. Do you remember the very first time visiting a new church? It can be really intimidating and very uncomfortable, especially if you're not accompanied by someone that invited you and you don't know where to go or you don't know what to do. So we have to keep this in mind and be very intentional with how we as the church engage those brand new people, which here we like to call them VIPs, but those people that are visiting our church for the first time. You know, it's critical that we keep in mind our mission, which is like the why of everything that we do as a volunteer. So like for MMC, if you're a volunteer, you know that our mission is to lead people into a real and life-changing relationship with Jesus that's contagious. That's literally why we exist. And so every time we open our doors, we're keeping that in mind as we're seeing those new faces pull into the parking lot or they're coming through our doors. That has to be our focus. The challenge, though, is that the decision to follow Christ, I want you to think about this. It happens after the message or an invitation is given, typically, or at the end of a worship experience. I mean, once in a while, maybe it does happen in the parking lot or the lobby, but listen, the problem with this is statistics say that most people will make a decision as to whether or not they're going to return to your church a second time within 7 minutes of arriving on your campus, or even less if you're on an online experience, right? So what does this mean? Our pre-service teams have a huge responsibility of creating a first impression pre-experience to the experience that impacts them so powerfully that they decide they're going to return before they even hear the music or the message. And more importantly, we want you to make sure that they make it to the altar, to that invitation time without any hesitation, so they can make a clear-headed decision to follow Christ. I mean, after all, that's why we're here, right?
You remember not long ago, we went on a little Helton family vacay to Colorado.
Yeah,
and we drove.
in January.
And we drove, January 2024. And I remember when we pulled up to the Royal Gorge. I hate heights. The gorge was so deep and so wide.
It was beautiful.
It was beautiful. It was extremely beautiful. But it was so big. And I remember there being a bridge that spanned across the gorge. And I thought, that's really the only way you're getting across this thing is on that bridge.
Yep.
And it just, it makes me think about how important bridges are, but not only from getting from one place to another, but the process of crossing that bridge is important to be able to do it safely.
Absolutely.
With me not liking heights, I want to make sure whatever bridge I'm crossing doesn't have any holes
or any gaps
in it or any gaps in the bridge. I want to be able to make it from one point of the bridge to the other. And this is just kind of what I think of when I think of building a bridge from the entrance to the altar. We have to build that seamless flow, no gaps, seamless flow of unconditional love and honor from the moment that people roll into the parking lot to the moment that they are given the perfect seat to sit in without distraction. We have to build that bridge from the entrance to the altar with no gaps. There has to be a seamless flow of unconditional love and honor. And as a volunteer, this is almost every volunteer position outside of those who serve on the platform, like the worship team. It can be found in 1 John 4:7-8, and it says, "Let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. And whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love." This is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world that we might live through him. Every single VIP, every new family must experience the presence of God and the love of his people.
Well, before we dive into what it really looks like, and we're going to kind of walk you through the first 7 minutes on our campus. But before I do, I really want you to go back to that very first question that I asked, and that is, do you remember going to a church for the very first time? As a volunteer, serving in all the positions that happen before they ever experience worship and the message, all right? All of those volunteer positions, I want you to just think about, what are those people feeling? We assume that with every single person who comes onto your campus, whether they are lost or they're a new family that has moved into your community and they're a believer, it doesn't matter. There is this amount of stress that comes.
It's an uneasiness.
It's an uneasiness. There's a stress that comes with being to a place you've never been before. Yeah. You're not really sure how people are going to receive you. Now think about the fact that if they are lost, okay, the enemy has been working hard to prevent them from being in that experience. Yeah. So they're already coming thinking, I don't know if I want to be here. I don't know what I'm going to experience. You think about the people, Brad, who have told us, like, we invite them, and then they say, like, if I ever showed up, the walls would cave in. Yeah. I want you to think about every person that walks past you as a volunteer. What if it's that person? And today is their day. Right. Like, God has been, his Holy Spirit has been working on their heart for weeks or months or years. Yeah. As someone or multiple people have been inviting them. I want you to think about the people you invite to the house of God. And I want you to think about, how do you want them to feel from the second they hit our parking lot? Because all volunteers that are going to be in these positions, guys, that is what we have to think about and focus on the whole time we're serving. Yeah, right?
Those are the front lines.
Yes. And so literally for me, every single week, whether it's a Sunday, a Tuesday, or a Wednesday, prior to doing what we do, I am thinking about the people that today, maybe they're here for the very first time, and maybe this week they wanted to end their life. Right. Maybe they're here for the very first time and they just lost their spouse or a child. Or maybe they're here for the very first time and they are so lost, they have no hope. And I just think, you know what? That's who I want to focus on. Not that everybody else isn't important, because they are. Okay? But at the same time, if we are so truly focused on loving God's people and loving those VIPs and letting them experience the presence of God, guys, everyone, not just the VIP, but those who have been at your church for 20 years or 40 years or however long, everybody is going to have a great experience if we keep that our focus. Yeah. All right, so I want to kind of take you through a few examples of what a VIP family would experience in the first 7 minutes that they're here at MMC, okay? Here's some of the things that we want them to be saying in their own mind. All right, Brad and I have talked this through from the moment we planted our church. Like, what are the things we want people to say about the church, okay, in their own head? Yeah. Things like,
or maybe even out loud.
yeah, things like, wow, people are like really excited to see us. Or, wow, these people are really loving. Or, wow, these people have really taken all the guesswork out of being a guest, right? Or, wow, I feel God's presence and the service hasn't even begun. Or
That
this
one's
one I
huge.
love, wow, I really feel at home here.
Yeah.
And we truly do hear people say that. They think it first and then they will communicate to us. That's what they felt when they were here.
Right.
And listen, this shouldn't just happen on campus, okay? For those of you who are doing online services and those that are a part of our online campus,
Right.
we also want people to feel and think all of those things when they join us online. Digitally.
Yeah. So just to be clear, we want to make sure that we connect the dots seamlessly from the parking lot to the next position, which is what we call the parking host on the sidewalk. So we identify that they are a VIP family in the parking lot. We radio ahead and make sure that that parking host is expecting them on the sidewalk with a big smile and a warm greeting.
How in the world do you identify that they are a VIP family when they're in their car?
Good question.
Okay, it's a great question. One of the things that we do here, and it doesn't work perfectly, but it is a great option, is we've got signage out at the entrances that says if you are new today, like if you're a new family, turn your flashers on. The other thing that happens is generally volunteers are scheduled for the same service every week. So like here, we currently have 3 services on a Sunday morning. As they're smiling and waving, they're noticing like, hey, there's Brad Misty, or there's AJ and Laney, or there's whoever. And then when they recognize somebody that they don't know their name, they might even be radioing ahead and saying, I think this is a VIP family.
They might be. I don't recognize them.
Like, I don't recognize them. Okay. And so then the parking team host is then able to still walk up, greet them, and hopefully they recognize, yeah, this is a brand new family. And here's one of the things that they'll say in identifying that, like, hey, good morning. How long have you been coming to MMC? It's great to see you this morning. Well, if they've been attending before, they're going to make a comment like,
Been here for a couple months.
Been here a couple months. We're loving it. Or today is my very first day.
No way, you don't say.
Yeah. Okay. And so from there, the parking team host is now going to walk them. We don't point, never point people in a direction.
Because we're showing honor.
We want to honor them.
We're
We want to
serving.
literally walk them where they're going. So the VIP or the parking team host will walk them then into a VIP host and make that connection. Those guys, their role is to help gather information. So we call it a digital connection card. We have it on our app, and it's very simple information like, hey, your name, your phone number, your address. And then we give them a gift. And so we want to show them honor. And so we give them a gift. Then if they have kids, they are going to walk them. That VIP host is going to walk them over to what we call Kid Connect. For you, it's just your kid check-in station, wherever that is, and hand them off again. Remember, we're trying to not have any gaps in our bridge. So we're handing them off. We're introducing them to someone that is serving in the kids ministry that's now going to help them check in their children.
Right. And again, we're not pointing. We're going to accompany them because we're going to show honor, and we want to make sure there's no gaps in the bridge. We're going to keep it seamless the whole time.
And, as a volunteer, if you're one that is making these introductions, as you're walking them, you're having conversation. Like, don't be weird. Don't be awkward. This is your home, right? Wherever you're serving, that's your home. They're brand new. You want to make them feel a part of your family.
Yeah, so if I notice they have a Chiefs jersey on,
you're going to talk about it.
I'm going to be like, no way, you love the Chiefs. Did you see the game last Sunday?
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. And so just create conversation.
Exactly. So once they go and they check in their children with Kid Connect or wherever you're checking in your children, then we have someone that's going to walk them from there to the zone where their children are going to check in. And then we have a position called an MMK greeter. And this is not only an adult who is checking to make sure that they have their sticker, that they've been checked in properly, but they are high-fiving those kids. They're hopefully calling them by name.
A lot of energy, a lot of excitement,
They
lot of
are
love.
going over the top to make these kids feel special and valued and like, this is your church. We're glad you're here. Then those kids go on in to their zone, and now mom and dad or mom, whoever this is, then is accompanied to the sanctuary where they're met by a worship host. And a worship host then helps them find a seat. So we take the guesswork out of everything. Like, you're not going to walk into a sanctuary and have to look around and be like, oh my goodness, I don't know where to sit. I don't want to sit in somebody's seat.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit somewhere and then it feel awkward. The worship host takes all of that pressure off of you and puts you in a seat that will be comfortable for you. They'll even ask you. And so all of these positions as volunteers, here's what we really want you to understand. At your church, it may look different, okay? You may only have 3 positions prior to the worship experience, but whatever those positions are, the most important thing is that we're focused on why we're doing what we're doing today. Guys, so many times, Brad, I think about the fact that once you've been serving for a while, it's really easy to get into a rut.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, this is what we do. You know, we get up, we fly to church, like we're trying to get everybody, we're rushing around. We get here, we're like, you know, we just get in our position and we start opening the door. Or we, you know, we go
But
do.
we forget why we're doing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so every week, you know, it's so important as volunteers that we are so cognizant that today could be the day that someone changes their eternal address.
Yeah, you might be doing the same thing week in and week out, but every weekend someone different is coming through the doors. And that's where it's at. It's recognizing there's a story behind every face.
Yes.
And every single person, they matter because there's an eternity on the other side of surrender. And so we have to build the bridge for them to be able to make that decision for Jesus.
That's right. So today, I hope this has helped you. If you currently serve as a volunteer here at MMC, I want to just encourage you, every time you serve, take a few moments before you serve to refocus.
Yeah,
Spend a few
reset
moments.
your mind and your thinking as to why you're doing what you're doing.
Exactly. Clear your head. Spend a few moments in prayer. We do that in our huddle times, but spend that time to just refocus yourself and remember why we're doing what we're doing. We are building a bridge from the entrance to the altar. We love you guys. We'll see you next time.